Nothing, baby. Let's go. That's the world now. That's the whole world.
Welcome to the Lone Star College Football Show. I'm your host, Chris Daly. Each episode, I will bring you news and information about college football in Texas, not just the FBS school, anyone who plays college football in the great state of Texas. I will do so by talking with the people making it happen on the gridiron, the head coaches, the staff, the players, but mostly the head coaches. Thank you for joining us.
Looking to boost your company's marketing? Look no further than Fresh Media Works. Podcasting is the best way to promote your brand and increase your customer base. You can create your own show, be a guest on other podcasts, or advertise on existing podcasts to reach a valuable audience. Don't wait. Start elevating your marketing game today with Fresh Media Works. Call now, 713-269-4620, or find us online at freshmediaworks.com/podcasting.
This series consists of press conferences at the 2023 Texas High School Football Coaches Association Convention. This is Sonny Dykes, the TCU head coach.
Real roundabout. How important is that walk-on, especially with players like Gunnar Henderson?
Yeah. It's interesting. I really, truly believe, in a weird sort of way, walk-ons are kind of the lifeblood of your football program. They're the guys that everybody respects, coaches, players. I had an appreciation for walk-ons, really going back to my time at University of Kentucky, where we had a guy named James Whalen that walked on, and pretty crazy story. He, played football in Oregon and somehow ended up in the state of Kentucky, going to UK, and shows up as a walk-on and ends up being a consensus All-American for us in Kentucky, and was a tight end, and set the NCAA record for most receptions as a tight end, and played a long time in the NFL. Had a great career, and just by chance happens to live in Fort Worth now, and someone I see pretty regularly. So, those guys obviously have gone on and had tremendous success. We've coached a number of players that have been very successful, but I think even more important than their role on the field is their role in the locker room, and the role, just being the fabric of your football team. Gunnar was a walk-on player for us. I think he started school at Texas A&M and tried to walk on and got cut. Ended up coming over to TCU and ended up being a really, really good player for us. And so much of it just depends on fit, and Gunnar kind of fit our offense, and that played in the inside slot position, and made a ton of plays, and just had a burning desire to get better every day, and all he wanted was an opportunity, and he got it, and he made the most of it. I think he had 2 touchdowns in the Oklahoma game. I know he had 2 long receptions in that game, and just as one of those guys that had a tremendous impact on our team, and those guys for us have been really invaluable through the years, and we try to do everything we can to make their experience a good experience. I think sometimes people view those guys as tackling dummies and that kind of thing, and we try to do everything that we can to ensure that they have a really good experience there, that they enjoy playing, because they're such an invaluable part of your program.
Billy and Bob. Hey, how are you?
Good.
You mentioned yesterday on the panel, but also at Big 12 Media Days, about some of the natural rivalries, like we think of UCLA and Rutgers, for example. Yeah. How do you see the SMU-TCU rivalry going from a...
I think it's going to be interesting to see how that thing plays out. It's like anything else. I mean, when you transition from a 4-team playoff to a 12-team playoff, in my opinion, that changes your scheduling dynamic. To me, pretty crazy this year, and I heard the stat, and it's mind-boggling. And again, I don't know if it's completely true, but I know if it's not true, it's close. So this year at TCU, we won 2 non-conference road games, against Power 5, 2 non-conference road games, all right? So went on the road and won at Colorado, went on the road and won at SMU. This year, with Nick Saban going to Austin and beating Texas, Nick Saban won his second non-conference road game as the head coach of Alabama. I'll let that sink in for a second. Okay? And so, I think what we have to do is we have to decide, what's our objective? What are we trying to do? What are we trying to accomplish? We're going to try to be a team that plays a large number of home games. I think that's going to be something for us that, we're interested in doing. So, I think you've got to sit down, you have to look at the dynamic of it all, and you have to make decisions based on, your objective, which again, our objective is to try to get into the 12-team college football playoff. And what does scheduling look like from a non-conference standpoint? It's really, really, really important to, to be smart about scheduling, to ensure with the odd number of road games and home games sometimes that you're going to have in a 9-game, you're going to have 4 conference home games some years, and you need to maximize opportunities to have 3 non-conference home games in those years. So you've got to do a good job, number one, taking care of your season ticket holders, obviously, and also two, making your situation make sense for you when it comes to the end goal. And I think you always have to start at the end sometimes to work your way back to the beginning. And I think is that rivalry is kind of one of those things that we'll kind of see how it plays out, how it fits into the whole thing. And then there's also some uncertainty about conference affiliations, who's going to be where, and how's that going to fit into it. So there's a lot of complicated things when it comes to scheduling, and we'll just kind of see how it fits.
Chris,
Yeah, Chris Hummer, 24/7 Sports. At Big 12 Media Days, you talked about the need to adapt every day to what you're doing in college football. Do you have any examples about how you changed over the last couple of years, what you were doing previously?
Oh yeah, I mean obviously for us, as transfers, at SMU during my time there, that was something that, every program has its strengths, every program has its weaknesses, and historically, SMU it was difficult to recruit high school players.
Yeah.
And, just based on kind of the pecking order of the way things went. And, all of a sudden, we're sitting there having conversations talking about, well, what makes sense, what doesn't make sense. And, then we look at Reggie Robertson reaches out, says he wants to transfer, before our first year there. We take Reggie as a transfer. Reggie comes and has tremendous success for us. He gets a waiver, becomes immediately eligible. This is really 2 years before the transfer portal was even a thing. Got a waiver, had a family situation, medical situation that made sense for him to be able to come back to Dallas and be healthy. So that was one, and then he made a huge impact. And the next year, Shane Buechele, and then those guys really changed the program. And so now now you've got NIL. Okay, now how's that going to affect? You have to decide, what do we want to do with NIL? How are we going to? Is it going to be set up so that every player on the team gets money? Is it going to be set up where only a certain number of guys get money? Is it going to be set up where high school guys get money? And so you have to make these decisions all the time about what you think fits your philosophy, what fits your program, and also too what gives you an advantage. And the funny thing about NIL is it's like anything else. Let's call it what it is. It's pay for play. And if you go out and you give a high school kid NIL money, well then he comes in and now he's in the same room with a starter that may not be getting NIL money. And how does that affect your team? How does that affect your program? So I think you just have to look. If you look around the landscape of college football, some of the teams that have been the most active in NIL have also had issues with chemistry and probably performing at a high level. And I think that's one of the things that I think is very, very important, and really important to us at TCU is making sure we have a good chemistry and making sure that, that what we do makes sense.
Do you think that chemistry is possible the same way in this era of college football than it was? Maybe?
Yeah, I think last year proved that at our place. That was, look, I can remember being here a year ago talking to people and going, man, if we could make a bowl game somehow, that'd be a hell of a year. You know, I mean, truly. And so we rolled out of spring football. We thought, yeah, we have a pretty good team. We've got a team that could maybe make a bowl game. You know, we had 5 scholarship D linemen on our roster. So, I mean, typically when you have 5 scholarship D linemen, you're going to have some issues, you know, and we were able to go find a couple of transfers. We were able to find a high school guy that started 12 or 15 games at nose tackle as a true freshman. You know, there were just some things that fell into place for us. And, you know, if you look at us, I think you kind of have to divide the season, I think, in almost 4 quarters for us. And you say, okay, the first 4 games, you know, we were, you know, probably below average team. Then probably the next 4 games, we were probably average to becoming pretty good. And then I think at the last, you know, quarter of the season, when you take, you know, you start thinking about winning on the road in Texas, you start thinking about winning on the road at Baylor. You know, we had 15 to 18 players that week that had the flu. You know, you just start thinking about winning those tough games, you know, when Quentin Johnston's out and, you know, you're banged up and you got guys that are sick and you've got to go figure out how to win in a place that's been historically pretty difficult to win at. And same thing, you know, Texas. I mean, I remember that was supposed to be the big reckoning for us. You know, the shine was going to get knocked off TCU. You know, those guys are going to roll over us, and it's not what happened. And so, you know, I think when you sit down and you look at that, that was the kind of the strong part of the season for us. So, you know, I think for us, it was so much of the success we had last year was that it was chemistry. It was being better collectively than we are individually, and I think that to me is what coaching is. You know, it's taking, you know, it's taking what you have and making something good. You know, it's opening the refrigerator, it's finding a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of that, throwing something together that tastes pretty good. And you know, and then we kind of did that, and then we figured out a way to throw a little bit more in there, and a little bit more, and a little bit more. And you wake up one day, you're 12-0, and you go, wow, we're pretty good. You know, and you lose a tough game in the Big 12 championship, and you're fortunate enough to get in the playoff, and you got a challenge where you got to go play a undefeated Big 10 champion, and you know, and we showed up for that. And really played well. And again, the disappointing thing for us was, you know, I think we played really, really good football for 14 weeks, winning football. You know, some games we played really good, some others we didn't play as good, but we played winning football. You know, we didn't turn the ball over, we didn't make critical mistakes. You know, and all of a sudden we get the Georgia game, the first play of the game, we have a false start. You know, to have 3 turnovers in the first half. We haven't done those things all year. You do it against the best team you played, and it doesn't go your way. And so, a great lesson for us. I think, you know, we learn from it, we adjust, and hopefully, you know, the next opportunity we have will handle it better.
Same kind of the athletic. Sonny, you guys play a team to start the season that has 40 to 70 new players, an entirely new coaching staff. How do you go about sussing out what that team is going to look like from a scouting standpoint?
Well, I think the best way you can look at that is kind of the analogy. You know, how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time? You know, I think that's kind of the approach you have to take there. I think you start with scheme. You know, you say, okay, where are the coordinators from? You know, and then you look at that and you say, okay, this is the scheme we think we're going to see. You know, fortunately for us, we've got some. You know, spring games are televised now, and so we have a little bit of an idea based on, you know, what they did in the spring game. So it starts from a scheme standpoint first, and then you sit down and go, okay, well, who are going to be the, you know, real important players in this scheme? And obviously the quarterback, and it being Deion's son, Shedeur, you know, that's, you're going to have a lot of tape from Jackson State to be able to look at him and say, okay, what does he do well? What does he not do well? What are his strengths? And so that's kind of the way it is, and you take really one bite at a time, and it's going to be, you know, you can't watch all 70 new guys, you know, in their former school. It's going to be virtually impossible for us to do, but you do kind of chip away and try to find the guys that you think are going to be difference makers and get an evaluation on, okay, what do they do, how do they do it, you know, what are they good at? And then I think the thing that I've always believed, honestly, you know, you get to focus on really yourself, which I think is the most important thing. Just going out and playing well, and as I said, developing a formula for winning, and I was proud of last year's team. We won a lot of games a lot of different ways. We had to win ugly some weeks. We won pretty some others. We won with our defense some weeks. We won with our offense some weeks. We made big plays on special teams. We did all the things that you have to do to beat people that are equally or more talented than you are, and give yourself a chance to do that. And really, that's what coaching's about. It's, we're not the kind of program that's going to take the field every week and have better players. But we can have a better team.
That said, you guys have a lot of guys in new roles and younger guys that have to step up. How do you feel those pieces are coming together, particularly on the offense?
Yeah, I mean, the good thing is when you sit down and you look at it, we actually had quite a bit of experience. You look at, Jack Bash is a transfer from LSU. Jack was a freshman All-American at LSU, really productive guy when he was at LSU, and was kind of injured last year, but we have a pretty good idea of kind of how he fits, what he can do. We had him in a limited role in the spring coming off of injury. When you sit down and you look at all those guys, whether it's Jack Bash, whether it's John Paul Richardson, whether it's JoJo Earl, whether it's Jalen Robinson, all those guys have played a lot of football. You know what I mean? Those guys have played a ton. And they have experience. Now, they don't have experience at TCU, but they have experience in the SEC or whatever league they were in before, and they have played pretty well. And same thing with Trey Sanders at running back. Trey's my age or close, and he just hasn't played that much because he hasn't been very healthy. But he's one of those guys that when you get around him, truly, it's like talking to a 30-year-old man, just with all the things he's been through and the program that he was at before. And when you get guys from Alabama, they've been exposed to a lot. You know what I'm saying? And those guys are mature, and so the three players that we got from Alabama, I think will all help us in different ways this year. But I think they all know how to deal with things. Just because I think they do a really nice job with their players, developing guys not only on the field but off the field, and creating leadership and all those type of things. And so, we got guys from successful programs that have been successful in those programs. I think that's one of the things when we take transfers, typically for us, we're not betting on the pound. We're taking guys that have performed at a high level, and maybe not recently because of injury or something like that, but typically we're trying to take guys that we know what we're getting.
And last question.
How do you feel about the NCAA's proposal with the shortened transfer portal windows?
To shorten it?
Yeah, the proposal to shorten it.
Yeah. I think we're trying to figure this out, man. You know what I mean? I think the transfer portal stuff is, to me, and this is kind of revolutionary, but what we've done is we've always built around signing day being the first Wednesday of February, okay? And that's stayed the same. Well, the recruiting game has completely 100% changed. But yet that has stayed the same, and I'm not really quite sure why. There hasn't been more conversation about, okay, let's just blow the whole thing up. Let's try to find a way for us to, again, accomplish the goals that we want to accomplish. Start from the end and work back to the beginning. All right, and say, okay, what do we want? All right, we want these kids to be able to take visits and lock in if they want to before their senior year. Okay, so what does the early signing period look like? If they want to lock in, why in the world would we wait till December to have those guys lock in? Why would we let them sign in July? All right, well then, the last thing in the world any of us want to do, and the last thing in the world any high school coaches want to do, and the last thing in the world any high school kids want to do is take trips during the season, because we're trying to get ready to play a game on Saturday. They have just played a game on Friday. We're asking them to leave their team because typically most schools have a workout on Saturday. And so why not say no official visits during the season? Okay, why not take visits in January and February and then have a signing day later in February or the first week in March? And that way we get to stay with our players, support our guys, instead of getting in a helicopter and flying to 3 different games on a Friday night, which the whole thing is silly. You know what I'm saying? And so I think for us, we just need to sit down and start at the end and say, okay, what do we want to do? Who do we want to take care of? How do we want to go about this? And blow up the whole recruiting calendar. Now the question was transfers. How do they fit into the equation? Well, think about this. So basically last year, we're trying to get ready to play the national championship game against Georgia. We have 5 official visits that week. Okay, the week of the national championship game. All right, so not only are we trying to get ready to play Georgia, we're hosting 5 important transfers on our campus that week. And so, I mean, that's not really the way this thing's supposed to be. And so I think we just have to sit down, try to make it work the best. There's a lot of moving parts. I don't know that we're ever going to make it perfect. But I think that there is some conversations that need to take place about, again, what are we trying to accomplish? Who are we trying to take care of? What can we do to make it better for the young people going through the recruiting process? First, because they're the people that we need to worry about the most, and second, for the coaches in the programs. So, long answer to that is, I think it's good that we're having conversations about it. I think, again, to me, the transfer portal needs to serve the players first and foremost, and then serve the coaches and the staffs of those prospective schools afterwards. And whatever that looks like, I think, I think it's certainly worth having a conversation about.
Thanks, Coach.
Okay, appreciate you guys.
And once again, I want to thank Junior Smokehouse for being the title sponsor of the Lone Star College Football Show. I look forward to telling you more about them each and every episode. Hey, if you want coverage of your school or just want to give a shout out to your team, leave us a voicemail at 713-568-6361 and we'll play it out on the show. That number again is 713-568-6361. Also, do us a favor and give us a rating and review on iTunes, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. We will also read out the best reviews on the air. Until next time, I'm Chris Daly reminding you to get out there and enjoy some football.